I've got your underground tea name.
Okay.
Philosophaster Tea. The Philosophaster Tea has a specific way to brew your tea, and you will get the best results every single time. So listen up to the Philosophaster Tea. Well, I had a friend who had a German grandmother, and she'd always say, "You don't want to just taste the cheese. You want to feel the cheese." And so I would think it would be something similar to the pu'er. You don't just want to taste the pu'er, you want to feel it.
You want to feel the pu'er, 100%. The second infusion, I'm going to restart your timer.
Mm-hmm. Well, this was a bit more bitter after it hung out.
It's going to be good. This next one's going to be great. So
I'm just saying that after we poured this, and then we poured it in there.
Yeah, it's because of that.
And then it sat here for a few minutes. And then it became, there's more tannins and bitters.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. And that's going to be because of the sediment that was in the cup. If we had strained it out, you're going to have a little bit more shelf stability in the cup. And again, I think what you're saying is you're just pointing it out. Not that it's a bad thing.
No, I'm just observing.
Yeah, the flavor changes, and this is true. And it's going to change more substantially the more sediment there is in the cup, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think this is part of the game of awareness.
It's true. Here, let's.
How can we be more present with what we are tasting?
Normally, you would make it on the tea sink. So you would go again. It's mise en place, dose.
Mise en place, dose.
And then make, which is what you're doing, and then clean. That's the idea behind sort of our system. And that's what we train a lot of baristas to do. Oh, you're being all classy, cleaning cups. That's what the pros do, man. I'm such a hack at this. I make, for those watching, I'm not a Gongfu-cha expert at all. No, I'm just learning myself. But I found that
we're all learners.
We are. I know there is that, but there's people that
never trust anyone who says they've learned everything.
I know. It's like you don't want to. Somebody says I'm a master. Yeah, problematic. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. I have had that. I've met people who said, "Hi, I'm so and so, and I'm a tea master." I'm like, okay, interesting. I believe it when it's a tea ceremony, like a tea. Like, I don't even know if they would introduce themselves that way. Other people would say, "This is my tea master," rather than the person saying, "Hi, I'm this person's tea master."
I'm the tea master.
Yeah.
Although you are Philosophaster Tea.
I have not made that name. Nor do I consider myself a master in any way, shape, or form. But it's fun. Okay. Very nice.
I can hardly wait till you meet what was his name? The Dark Horse Tea Man?
Oh, Dr. Midnight?
Dr. Midnight?
Yeah.
He says, "I'm Dr. Midnight. Well, you can call me Philosophaster Tea."
It's my tea name.
Yeah. So next time you see him.
I've been named. Yeah.
You have been named.
Yeah.
You
take tiny sips.
This one's a little bit more roasty.
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's interesting. I've not done this before where I have them like next to one another. You should do the next steep right away. It should be
next steep.
Yeah, let's do it.
Second steep.
So if you glance at the clock, you're telling yourself about an extra 10 to 15 seconds per steep.
Each steep you take an extra 15 seconds?
Yeah. So you started at 3 minutes there, and we're on our third steep, so you might want to take it to about, but it was
45.
But if you're finding it's tasting a little aggressive, like maybe like just now it tasted a little tannic, I would probably, I would curb tone it back. Maybe instead of doing 345, I would actually just do 330 again.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I do that. The first two steeps I'll make, because it's got so much like juice in it, I'll make the first two steeps kind of the same, 15, 20 seconds.
Okay.
But if my first steep is tasting a little weak, then my second steep I will make a little stronger. That doesn't always work though. Some teas taste better to have the second steep shorter than the first. So there's a certain getting to know the tea that's required.
Get to know you.
You get to know. So I heard a fellow I was drinking tea with saying that his...
It's like meeting a new friend.
So sometimes the worst cup you'll have of a particular tea is the first time you drink it. It's like a person who's bad at first impressions. But once you get to know them,
Or you have that tea that the first time you have it, you say, this is pretty okay. And then they just get really boring really quickly. Like that well-trained person who's great at first impressions, but very shallow.
This happens actually. People will talk about an oolong, for example, where all of the flavor is in the production. So the person who finished it was really good at taking an inferior raw product and making it taste sugary and aromatic and beautiful. But you get 2 steeps in, 3 steeps in, and you strip away those roasty qualities, and you start to taste the actual raw material. There's nothing there. It's not a very good tea. So a good tea, what is good, but like a good tea from a Gongfu-cha perspective, my understanding is one that has a lot to give. Multiple
just continues
infusions.
to give.
Yeah.
Reminds me of The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein.
But I've never seen a cafe try to do this. And I think if they did, they might actually be pleasantly surprised. Also, you can combine the steeps. So if somebody really needs their tea to go, you can do 4 steeps of that 75 mils, and you can easily fill up a 10, 12 ounce cup, and you're off to the races. And in about 2 minutes. So it's not actually that long, but you're giving the tea an opportunity to express itself is a part of it. Boiling water, small brewing vessel, large dose, flash infusions. Drink out of a small cup. It's gonna make a difference. It's gonna make a difference. And this one I felt tasted really great last time. So if I'm gonna restart your timer here, I'm gonna probably take this to about 40 seconds. I think. Yeah. What would you take this one to? And you have a thought. Do you remember your thought still? I interrupted your thought before it could get formed there.
No, thoughts in and out. What I'm thinking about right now, there's this, I guess author, motivator, Tim Ferriss.
Oh,
yes, right, the 4-hour work week. And he was mildly obsessed with pu'ers for a number of years. I'm not sure if he's still obsessed with it, but I remember seeing him getting interested in it.
It's a fascinating world. It's a fascinating world because they're aged like a good wine. The producers, where it comes from. Like raw versus ripe pu'ers. Like the whole world is just so deep. Oolongs as well. Like it's the greatest window of flavor opportunity in terms of enzymatic oxidation. Like you can just go so deep. And so
what's the range? Would it be a linear range? Would it be a circular range? If you're to talk about the flavors that you could find in pu'ers or oolongs, if you were to graphically represent, would it be a flavor wheel? Would it be a flavor rainbow? Would it be a flavor arc?
I think flavor wheels are helpful. I don't think, again, that I'm just I've spent a lot of my career on Japanese teas. So I could, although I'm still totally a learner, because I'm only, we're almost 20 years doing JagaSilk, but people have been doing multi-generational companies.
Yeah.
So like we're so young in that world that I don't even know if I'm qualified to speak on matcha, which is what we've done from the beginning. But, we've learned some things, different farmers telling us some stuff, research, tests, experiments, industry stuff. I think we can contribute to the story. When you ask me about pu'ers, you ask me about oolongs, I often just send people. Go talk to Daniel at the Chinese tea shop. Go talk to Eric over at Cloudwalker. Go talk to Pedro over at O5. They know so much, and I'm so learning. But maybe I can bring something to people's journey in that I am such an early stage learner. I understand that, we're drinking a ripe pu'er. This is a forced fermentation of...
This is even better, this flush.
Steep.
Steep.
Yeah.
I'm mixing flushing and steeping.
Flush is a harvest moment. Steeping is a brewing moment.
Okay.
So the raw pu'er is going to be somewhat like almost a incense or smoky green tea, parched green tea. It'll taste more like that. You as they get older, like you get your 1980 pu'er, you start to get a flavor that's much more basy. You get a color that's a lot more like this. But your younger raw pu'ers are so different, and it took me even longer to get into raw pu'ers than it did to ripe, and that's part of my noviceness. Like it's just I think this style of ripe pu'er, again, although it's takes some getting used to. Like you got to feel it. I think it takes even longer. We should do a raw pu'er session in the future. Yeah.
See the.
Yeah.
And what motivated people to start preserving teas like this? You know, for travel?
Yeah, for travel. Like we put them in cakes. You travel with them.
Yeah.
There's an aging process that happens on this sort of caravan of trade, and you sort of find that the same merchant drinking it at the beginning versus at the end of their travel, or coming back and drinking it later, is going to notice some big changes.
How it changes.
Yeah, and it's one of the most ancient ways of working with tea too. Like it's a very old style.
Well, travel preservation, but it's fascinating just to think that they would keep teas for decades and decades.
100%.
But I suppose that's what they do with wine. Cheeses? Do they keep cheeses
for a really long time? Oh yeah. Yeah. Think of your Parmigiano Reggianos. They get really old. The glutamate gets really concentrated and crystallized. You get these beautiful aged cheeses. You're up. Yeah. Cheddars. Think of those like 10-year-old cheddars and stuff.
Oh, it's better with cheddar.
We're on. What steep are we on for you? So I would do this one. What do you think? What is your?
I'm thinking a 40-seconder.
A 40-seconder. So you start at 450. So when that timer hits 5 minutes 30 seconds. And again, this is my style of making Gongfu-cha.
Philosopher tea. You know, it's a verifiable style.
Measure, maybe. Measurer.
Measure tea.
Yeah. I measure everything.
The measure tea.
But I like philosophizing about why the measuring is important. So for me, this helps me understand a little bit easier. It's like bringing a little bit of structure to the chaos. Mm-hmm. But you can also just embrace the chaos, and you can just make the tea, or let the tea make itself for you.
Well, do you want to be more Taoist or Confucian in your method?
Right. So I guess
pick it.
Even with my matcha, right? Like I weigh every dose.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, but that's not what you would do in tea ceremony. You would use the chashaku, and you would have amazing accuracy, especially over time. But you're definitely not using a scale in front of everybody.
Well, the way I do it is I just dump it in a smoothie container.
Yeah.
And mix it with UHT milk and collagen.
Amazing.
Which is
it's
and I think I miss a lot. I get the effect, which is what brings me back, the grounding effect of the matchas. Because let's talk about the psychoactive effect of matcha versus pu'er versus oolong.
Purely anecdotal.
Mm-hmm.
When I have a matcha, I get this. I find that it gets a little bit more. It's like a powerful stimulant of my digestion. I also find that it really noticeably, especially an hour in, gets me really good focus.
Yeah.
But it's gentle. I find pu'er reminds me more of like an espresso. Like I feel like when I drink it, almost immediately there's like a, whoosh, but it's not like this causing me to sweat. But I have had pu'er make me sweat, and that's when
pu'er sweats.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to be around anybody. But it gets really intense, like really rich, really thick. If you make, I've done 14 grams instead of 6.
Oh wow!
And that can get really, really, really thick. And you can really, you
can feel it.
Yeah. What did they say? It's so strong you can stick a spoon up in it or something. Yeah. Anyway, I find that there's also this has been brought up by our brewer, but psychoactive qualities. So like you do feel like there's stuff in the bacteria that's in the pu'er that's just making you like feel like whoa, like it's very mind opening.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you ever drank pu'er and just looked at a tree?
No. I've looked at a river.
Okay, tell me about, so if you drank pu'er and you've watched a river, how did the river change? How did your perception of the river change?
It's almost like the world, instead of it being all in here, it opens up a bit to here. Some oolongs do this for me too, especially the really deeply oxidized oolongs. Like we're drinking here.
Yeah.
On its own, this is a noticeably like powerful experience for sure. Yeah. And I think well worth the price of admission. A nice thing to do with, I think I was reminded of this recently by Dr. Midnight. He was holding a session outside, and I'd scheduled it for an hour. And he said, we can have an hour, but we should probably tell people an hour and a half, 2 hours. And I can see that because we're coming to the end of the show. We're done essentially, and we're
just getting started.
I know, we're just getting started, right?
Let's do some more pours. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
Do you want a final pour?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Because this is I don't want to over ask your time, Senor. So okay.
Another
Let's do it. Okay. We're gonna do some more pours. Mark, we good? Okay. All right.
Well, and it's interesting how the oolong is really starting to, like you said, lose its oxidation and reveal itself as a tea leaf.
I know, right? I love picking them up out of the brew and sort of unfurling them and looking at them. I think that's so interesting. This is when you can tell if the tea has been, bug bitten or if it's been machine cut. Like you can tell by looking at that wet leaf there, Adam, that has been hand harvested.
So you can tell this is a hand harvested leaf.
Yeah, because it's got that full leaf. Okay, and you're in a place where you can also see along the stem. There's like a discoloration that occurs, especially on the back. Like look at the back. See there? It's called striping. Okay. And it's just kind of a rustiness that's forming around the stem. A sign of a very nice oxidation technique. So the farmer's done a good job.
The rustiness.
Yeah. And then you can also tell, like sometimes you get these really nice complete bud sets where you can see that they've harvested 2 leaves and a bud.
Yeah.
But this type of tea, this is an old tree. That tree is almost 100 years old, and the leaves are quite large. So different cultivars are going to have different sizes of leaves when they're ready for harvest.
Okay.
And some are, they'll generically referred to as small leaf, medium leaf, or large leaf.
Okay.
Especially if they don't know the actual cultivar. A lot of times they don't, because like apples, when you grow these trees from seed, they're going to have a very different quality to them than if you're going to grow a cutting or a clonal. So clonals will let you have that genetic homogeneity so that you can repeat and get those flavors. Like in Japan, almost all tea is grown this way, using clonals that are replanted every 35 to 40 years.
So that you get the same...
You're noticing a trend here, right? Like it's interesting the difference between...
Well, I almost feel like there needs to be, and this is my non-traditional personality, I guess the creative side, that in the same way that West Coast beer brewers came out and brought in the high hop beers, or threw coffee in the beer, or did we brew? I think we did. You gave me some tea, and I brewed
some kombucha.
Tea beer.
Oh, tea beer. Okay.
I brewed tea beer. I went to a local U brew, and I got them to throw a whole bunch of the tea in the beer, and it was really
Why
good.
did I not get some of this beer?
I don't know. I think you were in like anti-alcohol world
was I?
at that
Okay.
time,
Maybe.
which is fair.
Yeah,
Fair. I wanted to just respect
fair.
some people.
I'm not there now.
I'm not a pusher.
Yeah, I drink for flavor.
Yeah.
I don't like the feeling of intoxication, but I love a good beer.
A good beer,
Good
but
wine.
We did it was a pilsner, a really light pilsner, and we threw in a bunch of the matcha tea and I think some tea leaves too.
Matcha? Didn't it get all sedimenty and brown?
No, it filtered it out, right? They filter everything out with the mash. We just threw it in with the mash.
Okay, yeah, it's so fine, right? It often gets through everything because it's less than 10 microns, so that screen size is insanely fine.
Fine, but I just remember drinking it and thinking, was
it good?
This is lovely.
It was good. Okay,
Lovely.
that would be cool. We should do I want in on this. Like, let's do another U brew beer, and I'll provide the tea.
Yeah, I haven't done this this was maybe 10 years ago.
Early on. Okay.
I stopped brewing beer because I had this thing. If I brew the beer, I need to drink it all within a month. Otherwise, it goes bad.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So I was drinking a lot of beer and too much.
Yeah, fair. Okay, you're up. Is that enough? I think that's enough. That's barely enough. And that timer's. What are you going to do this time? What's your plan?
I'm going to go Maybe a 50-seconder.
Okay.
I'm doing the 10-second increments.
What did you find that last one? How did you find it? Was it a
I
little?
found it right on.
It was right on. Okay, awesome, cool. So let's see how this goes.
I'm just going to see if I can get a puer leave, and then compare and
contrast. Okay.
Because these puer leaves are a little bit more. They're beaten up, eh?
Yeah. There's some pretty aggressive handling there, and I mean they're pressed in hydraulic presses. Like these are.
So this was made. There's a mechanized puer.
Yeah. And you're going to see 4 or 5 digits on a certificate of authenticity for puer, and that's going to tell you the year that the recipe was made. So if it says like 7.5, that's not necessarily the year that it was produced, but it's going to tell you that the recipe that they used was invented in 1975. Okay. And then the next digit after that is going to refer to from 1 to 9 the leaf size.
Is this just the stem?
Yeah, that's just stem.
This is just a stem.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a stem. Just trying to unroll it.
We've totally gone into, we're at 70 seconds.
This is you keeping me on track. The Filoso Master Timer T.
Filoso Measurer?
Filoso Measure T. Maybe we should change it to the Filoso Measure T.
I'm into it.
The Filoso Measure T.
Yeah, I mean, it's harder to analyze those leaves. They're more aggressive oxidation. Well, they're not really oxidized. It's more of a fermentation. So there is oxidation happening for sure. But the big craft there is
the Filoso Measurer
is in that piled fermentation. So ripe is how they translate this style of puer, but it could be translated as piled, like a compost. So they pile it so that it gets warm and they force that fermentation a lot.
Force it in.
There you go. There's a nice leaf.
Well, this leaf, it's I'm just making the cameraman.
That isn't overly aggressive.
No, it isn't.
I think if you'd done this early on, it would have been really bitter. But because of where we're at in the process, there's a little bit more forgiveness.
It just has a nice. Yeah, it has a nice.
It's like some fruit in there or something. Hey, that it's hard to identify. Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah, Eric the Cloud Walker.
Yeah.
He sat down, he came over and gave me a tea experience.
Did he?
Yeah, when I was renovating my house.
Oh wow. That's cool.
Pleasant, very pleasant experience.
Didn't you joined us for a session when we were doing the tea clinic release outside?
Yes, we were outside, yes.
Yeah, that was a JagaVision episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But he came to your house too?
Yeah. He just wanted to
make you tea for your renovation.
Tea. Build a relationship. So
awesome.
Nothing really happened. Like, it's funny, we had tea together.
Yeah.
And then, life is busy.
Sure. Well, here's the reminder. Yeah. Have another cup of tea. Yeah.
Have another cup
I think this Saturday there's going to be a free. Actually, it won't be this Saturday, but it will have been. On some Saturdays, we suddenly have. If you pay attention to the Instagram and Facebook and website for the ITAS, the International Tea Appreciation Society, I think it's victeafestival.org.
Okay.
When there's free tasting events, they're promoted, and sometimes on Saturdays here in the Nooka Court, Eric will actually host free tastings.
Oh wow.
And then he's got some cakes that are like $6,000 for like a cake. It's pretty unreal.
It's amazing.
I wonder. I tell you, man. If you're ever gonna start a tea company, puer makes sense because your assets, your inventory, increases in value the more you hold on. Now you do need to sell some to pay the bills, but and you were asking about dedicated teapots, definitely a thing. Yeah,
with puers,
especially when your teapots are not glazed on the inside, because they're going to absorb those tea oils, and then they're going to contribute. So you can actually have this teapot is for this puer cake. Not just puers in general, but this puer cake. This one. Not this one.
So then what happens when you use up the puer cake? Then
you could repurpose the teapot? It depends on...
Can you clear out the flavors of the clay pot?
Lots of people would argue no, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, just layers.
It layers and contributes. It's like some people that feel that way about their coffee brewing equipment. It just layers and contributes to the next cup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and then you could, then you could just market the teacup that you've had for 80 years.
That's right.
With all the different layers of flavor.
You know, the people on their deathbeds, like when they're giving away their pu'er collections, you know, it's a big deal. Especially these people that have pu'er caves. It's like your wine cave, you know. It's like if you, there's some pu'er cakes that are from the era of Louis XIV.
Really?
Yeah, that have sold for over $1 million a kilogram. Like, it gets pretty intense.
It's rare.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if you're a rich tea connoisseur, can't take it with you. Somebody's got to
get the inheritance.
Yeah, like money's got to pass around. It's got to be, value's got to be held somewhere.
It is a commodity. It's considered an art. It's quite fascinating, like how that value translates. Do you feel like this was a? Did you learn something? Was there?
I did.
If you had a gaiwan
Like,
and some boiling water, and you were, you know, you could just wing it. Just throw the tea in, boiling water. Oh, that wasn't strong enough. Okay, I'll put more in next time. You know, that's one way of doing it. Or you can do the 1 gram for every 15 grams. My style. Once you've measured out what 75-80% looks like, and then from there we're
also
doing
measurer.
Yeah, and then we're doing so that is your choice.
Yeah.
And then boiling water is really helpful. Flash infusions, keep increasing as you go, and I think you'll be in a good place. So that's Gongfu-cha.
Yeah, Gongfu-cha. It's well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying to articulate what I've learned.
Okay.
I'm trying to see what stands out, and I do like the flush and the steeping.
Yeah,
the flush. The difference between that's one thing I've learned.
Yeah.
Keep making mistakes.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah,
do it. Yeah.
So with the steeps.
Yeah.
Just being able to have a very quick steep with a fresh tea, and then redo it with the longer steeps, and having the little bowl. What are we calling this? The gaiwan.
Yeah.
Full of tea.
Yeah.
It just allows for kind of a fluid, a fluid motion of brewing the tea, which is interesting. When I think of it logistically, it's really helpful to have that kind of teapot.
Totally.
That's
just held at that temperature all the time, right?
And where would you get a teapot like that?
8-ounce coffee.
8-ounce count. Okay.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. They're called a fellow.
A fellow.
And then they have a dial, an analog dial. You can get 2 different types. I don't get the one with Bluetooth. I don't need to turn on the kettle from bed. It's just, to each their own. They do have that option if you want to pay a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But I don't find it required for me. I do like the walnut handle.
It's very pleasant. It's a pleasant pot to hold and use.
And this is a nice setup for, I love doing this after a family dinner. Mm-hmm. You know, you clear off the table, you bring out the tea sink, the tea set, and you start brewing tea. It's awesome. What a nice way to connect. All these little cups, even if you have a big group of 10 people, if you brew in something like this, and if I have 4 or 5 people, I still brew in the little guy, and I just put a little bit less, but you're just doing so many flash infusions that you're talking. There's something very visually satisfying about the whole practice.
Yeah, everyone sits around, they watch it, and you pour the tea out, and then they have their little shot, they put it back down.
I love it.
You're the tea master.
And you go through, like, we filled this up twice. That's 750. We have between us 1.5 liters of tea. Can you believe that? Or at least 1 liter. There's still some left, but we had at least 1 liter of tea between us.
Yeah, that's more than I would have thought. Just sipping a little.
Right? I find that fascinating. Just how much water I go through in this practice. I'm just like, wow, I drank a lot of water just now.
Yes.
And people are like, oh, I don't have my big mug, but there's different ways of going about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get the same liquid at the end. You're still having your 16 ounces. It was just
spread out. Yeah. More of an experience. Well, thank you, Jared.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Next week is going to be another fun show. We publish every Thursday around 2-ish, sometimes a little bit later. If you can have patience with us while we sort of work on this new formula, we would really appreciate it. We're also doing a new process of re-releasing some of our older episodes as previously published episodes of JagaVision. And those episodes are just a way of using this new formula of dividing into 2 parts and making everything a little bit more digestible. We're editing them a little bit more. There's some stills that have been added. You get to see a little bit of what's going on at the spaces that our guests are from, some of the topics that are being covered, etc. So I really appreciate you tuning in. I'm Jared Nyberg. You can go to jagasilk.com and you can check out some of the teas that we're drinking. We're going to be releasing some pu'ers pretty soon. If this isn't an archived version of this show and you're just watching it currently releasing, then the pu'ers are going to be up pretty soon. So
if you ever meet him in person, make sure you call him the Philosomaster or the Philosomeasurer. He will respond to either, but not Jared.
And Uncle Teak. Uncle Teak. He's a kind of wood. Yeah.
Uncle
Mahogany, teak.
Teak.
Yeah.
Teak.
Yeah, okay.
Oak, teak.
Yeah,
but it's spelled T-E-A.
And if they want to find you, it's at uncleteak.com? Or
Yeah,
is there
Uncle
a different...
Teak.
Is there different? Is there a different webpage they can, if they want to look at?
You can just look for me, uncleteak.com.
Okay.
Uncle Teak.
There's also creekspeak.com. You can check out.
Yes.
You know, you have options.
You have options. You can find me on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm a lot more serious on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. I don't know, man. You should just like be throwing pu'er at the camera every time.
It's business. It's all business on LinkedIn.
Apparently. I got to update my LinkedIn. It's terrible. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a fantastic day and toodles. Okay. Cool. That was really fun.
That's good.
We did a really interesting new format where we did a republished version of a talk that we had here with the owner of Kuzen. And then Pedro Vijalon was on after that from O5T, and we were comparing different mills throughout the ages.